been so great. I've been waiting so long. Got so much to say. Tell you before I'm gone. 'Cause I'm breaking down. Another day, I've been sick of this life. I might as well just fade away like I'm staying inside. I always keep to myself, but I like to play with fire sometimes. I'm trying to keep from losing my mind. I might just need a little more time, but I'll give you all that I got.
Today, we're diving into one of the most liberating and transformative skills you can ever develop, the art of letting go. Whether it's a painful past, an old identity, a toxic relationship, or the weight of your own expectations, holding on can keep us stuck in patterns that drain our energy and block our growth. My guest today is Warren Munitz, founder of Integrative Coaching, who has helped countless people navigate those emotional crossroads with clarity, compassion, and courage. In this conversation, Warren is going to help us understand why letting go is so hard and how we can truly release what no longer serves us, not just in theory, but in practice. Come on, let's get started. Warren, why is letting go so difficult for most of us?
Well, it depends on what we're talking about when we talk about letting go. Generally, what are we holding on to? What we're holding on to are often things that make us feel secure or help us feel secure, and not only at a conscious level, but deeply unconscious. The things that we have identified with, felt familiar with as we grew up in early childhood are often the things that define our identity. And so even if those things are toxic, negative, don't serve us anymore, because they are so deeply embedded in our identity, letting them go feels like dying. So having something negative is still better than dying. So we often choose not to let those things go, which can be the glass ceiling that we are experiencing or the repeating pattern that we're stuck in. And the challenge then for us is to look at what is it that gets exposed if we choose to let the thing go.
How do we know when it's truly time to let go?
I think the repeating pattern is often a good one. So if you notice yourself going round and round and you feel stuck because you are witnessing the same pattern or the same outcome, and it's an outcome that you don't want, and you see that, and you start recognizing the same thoughts and the inner narrative that says something like, why is this here again now? Why do I have to deal with this now? Or I keep doing the same thing and I keep getting this result. Or negative thought, negative self-talk, which is maybe along the lines of, why do I keep doing that? like, oh, you know, and maybe there's criticism. Like, I'm so stupid. Why do I do that? I should be further along in my career, or I should be better at X, Y, Z, or whatever the case is. Those are often telltale signs that something is happening for you to actually pay attention to, not externally, but internally, to identify what is it that is keeping you in that pattern. What is it unconsciously that is calling you all the time, which you keep falling for? That's always a good reference.
Now for the big one that I often ponder.
Okay.
What's the difference between letting go and giving up?
So I think that's the biggest challenge for most people, to recognize the difference. And often it's very difficult to distinguish, because in the beginning there is a sense that letting go is giving up. It's almost like these two things are conflated. They're the same thing to me. But the difference in letting go is that there is a conscious choice to be in that space of the experience, and it's quite an empowering experience, because you are now facing the underlying emotion, the underlying belief, or the situation as you let go, and you're doing that with presence, power. There's a strength in doing that. Giving up is sometimes the same experience, except now you've switched on the narrative of the victim. And so you go now you're actually in your head. You're not really facing the experience. You're in a strategy of denying the experience by being in this victim mentality, which is, oh, why is this always happening to me? And so you don't actually break into the deeper dimension of consciousness when you surrender. That deeper dimension of consciousness of surrendering is a new space. It's an expanded version of you, where the giving up part is where that space, the opportunity is there, except to not go in, to avoid exploring that space. You maintain the narrative of the victim, and that keeps you stuck. So the experience actually that's emerging opportunistically is the same, or potentially is the same. But how we go beyond that then changes. Surrender to giving up.
How can holding on affect our mental and physical health? So more maybe along the lines of explain stress, tension, and energy drain sort of linked to unresolved attachments.
So if we take the idea of the victim, that victim mindset or a negative mindset, I'm holding on to this negative mindset which is familiar to me. Maybe I'm aware that it's negative, but I don't know what to do about it. But if I look at it as in what scares me more, does it scare me more to stay in the negative mindset, or does it scare me more to go into this new unknown space? If I'm not willing to go into the new unknown space, this pattern will maintain itself. And instead of getting the message emotionally or mentally, you start to get physical symptoms of that message. And sometimes we can't help it. That's where life takes us. And the experience is a breakdown somewhere in the body, whether it's a cold or some other issue in the body that breaks down. We have to look at the patterns that we are engaged with, where it's had to come to this, where the body is now telling us, listen, it's time to let go. It's time to look at something that's going on in your life, some pattern that you're maintaining that no longer serves you.
Why do we hold on to pain or hurt even when it's destructive?
We hold on to that pain or hurt because sometimes that is how we define who we are. And because that's all we know, we stay there. So sometimes that pain and hurt can give us a sense of self. If our sense of self is based on that pain and hurt, giving it up would mean giving up our sense of self. And more than likely, that's unconsciously terrifying to the ego structure. So we would never even attempt that unless we are guided and taught that there's an opportunity there that is in the unknown that you haven't learned about yet. Usually that's where the coach comes in, or therapist, to hold a space for you and to help you investigate what you are consciously or unconsciously avoiding.
If you're finding value in today's conversation, tap that like button. It really helps us reach more people who really need these insights. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll be the first to know when we go live and share new tools for your growth. Share your biggest takeaways in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. What role does forgiveness play in letting go?
So let's start with forgiving yourself, really. So if we are going to let go, we are going to come into contact with experiences that have been suppressed, emotions, beliefs, memories even, that are going to be quite painful. And so when we think about that, how does that dynamic happen internally? It can feel like we're hurting ourselves, and we have to have forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to have compassion for ourselves, because that type of hurt that's going to come up needs to be processed. It needs to come through. So the hurt there is not intentional. It's not malicious. It's actually for our own good. It's for our own benefit. And so having a mind that is open and forgiving and compassionate allows us to move through these experiences with grace. Without that compassion and forgiveness, we will only end up judging ourselves, which maintains the dimension or the tension between that dimension, and it keeps us stuck, keeps us in our old paradigm.
Can you let go without closure from the other person or situation?
Yes, definitely. Otherwise, no one will be able to grow, or no one will be able to grow unless both people are growing. So, is there a situation you want to that's useful, maybe?
Maybe just providing insights into finding internal closure when external resolution isn't possible.
Right. So let's say it's a situation at work or a situation in some relationship where you feel you want to get beyond the tension. The other person is not willing to get beyond the tension. So if that person is around all the time, it is going to be difficult, but you can get to the point where you have identified what that person is there for in your life. Why are they triggering this dimension of your consciousness? If you're able to embrace that, in a sense, You're embracing them, but not them externally, them as an internal representation. And that internal representation is actually part of you. So when you accept them internally, you're accepting a dimension of yourself. That means you can forgive that part of yourself, but that doesn't mean you necessarily need to open your doors to that external person. There could be a dimension that you have here, which is a narcissistic personality disorder, and opening yourself up to them again is not going to be a good idea. But once you understand it in yourself, you'll understand where that boundary is for yourself. And if you've accepted yourself, then you can accept them for who they are. You can engage politely and not be triggered by what they say, because you've already dealt with that part of yourself, which previously, when they engage with you, maybe gets triggered and you then deny. Because the moment you've accepted and forgiven that part of yourself, the tension is gone.
Warren, can you recommend some daily practices that we could do to help us to loosen this grip?
Which grip?
Of not letting go.
So it's not something, not letting go is not something you can do once. It's not it's definitely not a one and done. It's more of a state of consciousness and mental and emotional hygiene. So like brushing your teeth every day, drinking water every day, getting enough sleep every day, learning to let go every day. This is a good practice to get into. And you can start with things that are small, that are niggles, things that don't trigger you to the point of total overreaction, but things that maybe irk you a little bit, things that irritate you a little bit. Start with those things. Identify them quickly. Start immediately. Check in with yourself. Instead of pushing those things a little bit away under the surface, because it's easier to do that, that leads to that bigger trigger. So if you're practicing a little bit every day where someone's late to your meeting, you're stuck in traffic, you read something in the news, as much as you can, catch what you're feeling, recognize it as a part of yourself, and see if you can hold it with compassion. Recognize if you can see the trigger itself. What triggered that? Maybe you wake up and there's a feeling there, they don't even know how it got there. Catch it. Feel it. Are you aware of what brought this on? Or can you identify what it is? Maybe it is something that you know that's coming up later in the day. Or maybe it is something that someone said to you. As long as you can catch it and practice catching that and practice becoming aware of what you're feeling, that is probably the most consistent practice you can do every day to learn to let go.
Could you talk a little bit more about the connection between letting go and personal freedom? You know, how release can open space for new opportunities and experiences.
So letting go and personal freedom. The one is the outcome of the other. So if you are not consistently letting go, and you're in a different mindset, a mindset maybe of control, then you will probably feel that personal freedom is always under attack, or that someone can take it away from you. I think personal freedom means a lot of different things to different people. And understanding what that is truly, internally, is something that must happen for you to actually experience what true freedom is. But unless you are practicing letting go, that's not ever going to be possible. So practicing letting go is crucial to personal freedom.
How can someone rebuild after letting go of something central to their life?
What do you want to rebuild?
I suppose what I'm trying to get at is to maybe exploring the role of rebuilding identity and purpose after a major release.
I think the misunderstanding for most people is that we have to have an identity to hold on to. And that's the illusion. So if we take, for example, when we let go, what happens? Often there's an experience of, if I let go now, then there's the unknown, or then there's emptiness. And then what do we hold on to? What we're experiencing there in that moment is the initial stages of becoming aware that awareness itself is really the true identity and not the identity that we have created called the ego. If we look at the Eastern philosophy, either Buddhism or Taoism, where the experience of emptiness leads to compassion or peace. When we look at our Western mindset, the experience of emptiness leads to anxiety and neurosis. So why is that? And the only reason that is because we haven't been taught that letting go into a deeper state of consciousness doesn't need an ego to be there. That our experience will deepen into our being, and being is its own identity. But we don't trust that. We've learned not to trust that inner space. So we look for external identifications, external validations, external recognition. But the more we're able to get that internally, where we realize that's the ground of our being, we can let go of external validation and still be okay. In fact, more than okay. In fact, we would start experiencing all the things that we desired externally, internally, which triggers, for a lot of people, this idea that then they won't get the goals that they're aiming for. They won't be driven to achieve what they want to achieve or achieve their dreams. And that's absolute nonsense, because we would have more energy to achieve that dream. That dream that we have deep down, that dream is intrinsic to being, not ego. Ego will try to achieve that dream, but quite superficially. The more we allow being to drive the ship, to guide us, the greater the chance of actually achieving our true dream, whether that be whatever your dream is. When you experience that internally, it comes from a much deeper place than just getting a pat on the back or getting your peers to like you. It is your purpose for being. It is your actual purpose for being, for existing. That gets fulfilled. Then you do that because you love doing it. It's like an orange tree growing oranges. It's natural. It's aligned with everything. So just to remind me of the question.
So I think you've answered it perfectly.
I just want to wrap something up, because Can you repeat it for me?
Yeah, one sec. Can I come back to that?
Sure.
Sorry. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so the more we're able to let go, we don't have to rebuild anything.
So to interrupt, Warren, the
Yeah.
question was, how can someone rebuild
Yeah.
after letting go of something central to their life?
So you don't have to rebuild. You have to trust. The more you go in, the more you let go of the old structure called the ego identity, the personality, the more you have to trust that something is intrinsic in you. And for you to meet that directly, without the veil of thought, you and it. The more you meet it, the more you realize that there is actually no separation between you and it. And then you actually are just an expression of it. And then you can trust that to be the foundation. That is what Carl Jung called the indestructible foundation, where the patient or client meets that part of themselves when everything is broken, where they cannot support themselves and they experience that inner support. But to get to that place, we need to learn we need to have a philosophy of life that actually supports that, so that we can take that leap from baby steps into the infinite of our being.
Warren, fascinating. Can I ask you one more question today?
Yeah.
But before that, if you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to like, subscribe,
Yes.
and
Please.
share this content with people that will really benefit from it. So my final question today is, how do you handle the fear of what comes next, after you let go? So perhaps you could offer a perspective on moving into the unknown with trust and openness.
So look at how the question is phrased. Because when we phrase that question, there is this very clever way that the mind will phrase it for you. But what comes next? Which is actually the reaction to fear. You're not trusting in that moment. But what comes next? You're not trusting in that moment. Trust means to let go and allow, and to trust that what is next will come to you when it's needed. And if nothing comes, then do what is happening today. Just be in the moment. The mind will want to trick you because that's its nature. Its function is to create a false sense of self so that it can stabilize when awareness is born into the body. But at some point in life, usually midway, sometimes a bit before that for some people, but usually midway, we start to experience the limitation of that first structure. And we have to start to question, is its narrative truly in our best interest? Truly. Is its narrative and its beliefs and its constant judgment and criticism actually the truth? Or is it a false narrative which at the time served its purpose, but is now past the sell-by date, which means you need to let that go. You need to learn to let go the authority that you've given it, and you need to start reminding yourself that that authority actually exists within you. But where within you? Well, it's beyond that point into the unknown. It's beyond that point of the known, where the mind and the conscious ego are very much in control. It's at that place where the threshold is. So unless you are courageous enough to open up and to enter that space without the armor of the mind, it's not possible for you to get to a place where you trust yourself deeply.
Letting go isn't just about releasing the past. It's about creating space for the life you truly want to live. Warren, thank you for sharing such deep wisdom and practical tools with us today. If you've been holding on to something that no longer serves you, maybe this is your moment to start setting yourself free. You can discover more about Warren's work and how he can support your journey by visiting integrativecoaching.co.za. Your next chapter is waiting. The question is, are you ready to step into it?
Exactly. And we'll see you next time.